In this video, we're going to talk about some VDC functions such as design change management, validating a model, sectioning and splitting model elements, and measuring elements in 2D and in 3D. So in this session, I want to talk about some functions that I'm not going to demonstrate, but I do want to talk about. The first thing is design changes and how we can look at design changes. We have a report option here, and this will show us all the elements that have changed and how they've changed, whether they've been deleted, they're new, or they've just changed, meaning maybe there was a quantity change or the name change or something like that. So that'll give us a detailed report. We also have checkpoints here. Now checkpoints lets us pick elements that we want to track quantity changes for, and then we run that what we call an audit between model revisions, and we'll be able to see those quantity changes for those specific elements we picked. And we can do that through each change of the model or through each revision. And what that does is allows us to look back at the project and see those quantity changes. And so let's say, for example, you have an estimate and it's gone up $20 million. Well, you can go back at your checkpoints and look to see where those quantity changes have happened that may reflect the estimate. So maybe look back and you see between revision 2 and 3, the steel quantity went up by 20%, or maybe between revision 3 and 4, your glass curtain wall area went up by 10,000 square feet or something, and that kind of explains your estimate increase. So it gives you insight into the changes, and like I said, it'll do it through the life cycle of the project, so you can look back through each revision, I should say. Next, let's talk about validation. So validation is the ability to be able to check the model for issues. So in the tab here, in the validation tab, we have functions where we can run the model against some tests to look for these issues. So these may be things like modeling issues, where let's say, for example, a grade beam was modeled as a floor object, or the modeler used a floor object to create a grade beam in Revit. Or maybe there was a wall that was modeled full height of the building, and instead of being separated by each level. So that may affect your estimate or your schedule. So that's what we use validation for, is to check for those things. Next we have sections. So with sections we can start grouping elements together for then carrying that information into an estimate for subdividing the estimate out. And to do that, we just create a shape over here. We can use a rectangle or a polygon or any shape actually, and we just draw that in the 3D model, and the elements that are inside that shape will be assigned to that section. So they're automatically assigned to that section. So then you take that information into the estimate for subdividing. Now one thing that's really important, or I would say necessary, is splitting the elements. So when you create those sections, inevitably some of the elements are going to span multiple sections. Maybe it's a wall or a floor or ceiling. So you need to be able to split the elements so those elements will now go into their correct sections. And then last we have measurement. So with measurement we can measure 3D elements. So I can measure distance, calculate area and volume. I can quickly get the area of a face of an object or the length of an edge. We can also measure in 2D. And how we do that is we bring in a 2D image file, let's say maybe a PDF, and then you overlay it onto your model, and then you can go ahead and do your measurements. So you can come in here and measure your length, your area, your volume, those type of things. Now both with the 2D measurements and the 3D measurements, you can then take those quantities into your estimate and use those for estimating. So that concludes this video on the VDC functions. Next we're going to start talking about quantity extraction and estimating in Avaya.